Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whichever part of the world that you're watching from. And welcome to this talk show brought to you by Xylem and Mercy Corp, which will be all about how corporate philanthropy has helped de-risk and prove innovative water solutions in Jordan. My name is Haji Yacoubi, and I am delighted to be your moderator for today. So whether you're joining us here live in this room with us in Stockholm or whether you're watching online, a big warm welcome to you and thank you so much for tuning in. Because the topic that we're going to be discussing in these upcoming 20 minutes is all about how private philanthropy, corporate philanthropy, exemplified by the two organizations that we have in our midst today, can really help and be a driving force in tackling the climate crisis. We'll be talking about how we can use targeted investments to spark innovative solutions, and we'll be diving deeper into the case of Jordan, where there are some lessons that we learned, some best practices, and more to be said about that. And here to discuss that with me, I am delighted to be joined today, first of all, by Meredith Hess, Senior Advisor on Water Security at Mercy Corps. Very warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
And also joining us here today is Austin Alexander, Vice President, Sustainability and Social Impact at Xylem. Austin,
good morning.
Happy to hear you as well. So a lot that we're going to discuss in 20 minutes, which is always a nice thing to try. But before we do, I think it might be nice to get a bit more of an understanding about what each of the respective organizations that you represent do. So maybe Meredith, if I can start with you, could you tell us a bit more about Mercy Corps?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mercy Corps, its primary focus is to work with and alongside communities in building resilience to conflict and climate, specifically around 4 outcome areas,
right.
Whether that be clean water, as of course we all care particularly about today, but also about food security, economic opportunity, as well as peace and good governance. And working across the humanitarian development and peace nexus, we really try to embrace a localized approach in improving livelihoods and resilience.
Yeah. Hey, and you mentioned water as one of those 4 pillars. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, what does the work that you do worldwide on water look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So our work on water security kind of encompasses the full range of challenges that a community might face across the humanitarian development and peace nexus. And particularly Mercy Corps works in some of the most challenging operating environments and fragile and conflict-affected environments. So our water security work includes WASH interventions, but also financing, governance, watershed management work that really helps to look at the kind of entire spectrum of challenges that community and the related impacts that communities face due to water insecurity.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I hear you mention interventions. Austin, if I could go over to you. Can you maybe share with us a bit more about the work that Xylem does, and then specifically when it comes to, water interventions like those, what sort of work does Xylem do to support initiatives like those?
Yeah, thank you. So our Xylem, we're a global water technology company. So we're focused really on the innovation side. And we have about 23,000 employees globally, 150 countries. So we really focus from the sustainability perspective on 3 areas of interventions. First, decarbonization, what we can do to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions related to water infrastructure.
Right.
The second is accelerating water stewardship practices in watershed environments. And then the third is advancing water security for all, both in crisis scenarios, but also really thinking about long-term sustainable climate resilient WASH infrastructure.
Yeah.
And so through those 3 interventions, focus areas, we've set corporate targets, both for our own operations, but also the way that we impact communities. And so one of our goals that really drives our engagement with our over 15-year partnership with Mercy Corps is our 2025 commitment to reach 20 million people with WASH access.
Oh, wow.
And we just upped that an additional 80 million by 2030.
Yeah. That's amazing to hear, even. And 15 years, it's a good number to have on the record, right? But maybe can we just briefly look at that, because you've decided to bring the topic of corporate philanthropy to the stage here today. 15 years on the counter, that's really, really good. But why is it so relevant that we talk about, corporate philanthropy working together in that manner? Why have you decided, in other words, to sort of choose this topic for today? Maybe Meredith, if you...
Yeah, absolutely. So So in the context of what it looks like to deliver effective, good, sustainable, durable water security solutions, in a world where there is shrinking international development funding and humanitarian budgets because of just increasing challenges, having partners such as Xylem to help give us kind of an initial set of funding to develop proof of concept to incubate new ideas, pilot new ideas. Innovation's not a one-size-all solution. So making sure that we are able to develop and design programs that are based off of good research and analysis, and are piloting and testing new ways of achieving impact. It's incredibly important to have partners such as Xylem who are able to give us, critical funds, flexible funds that allow us to kind of take the outcomes of that initial investment in doing that pilot research and doing that initial kind of community consultation, and then leverage that for greater funding, as I think we'll talk about in a little more.
Amazing. Yeah. And maybe also from your perspective, looking at it from the other side of the partnership.
Well, I think what Meredith said around innovation is really critical. We think about innovation not just as in technology innovation, but also in the way that we do business models or other interventions. And so corporates are able to be a little bit more flexible with our philanthropic donations to drive our own commitments. And so, like Meredith said, we're able to maybe provide, in this case, initial funding that then brings in other financial institutions later down the road.
Yeah, to sort of scale that up even further. That's interesting. Okay, and I mean, Meredith, you touched upon that lightly already, but so we know the relevance of the partnership, why it's important. Can you maybe share more with us about what your partnership has been able to sort of bring achievements in? What have you achieved over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2021, in particular, Xylem helped to fund some initial work in Jordan, Jordan being one of the most water scarce countries in the world, but also having the lowest supply of water availability per capita, or one of, and is facing a series of challenges. And so in the initial investment made by Xylem, and I believe Xylem Watermark more specifically, we were able to do an assessment and analysis looking at improving livelihoods alongside an introduction of different technological innovations, whether that be irrigation systems, but coupling that with the appropriate other kind of governance, financial mechanisms, and resilience and livelihood investments. That has since turned into a fully funded program funded by the Australian and Swiss governments. So I think it's a fantastic example of how that initial investment made by Xylem has allowed us to have proof of concept, establish the relevant kind of coordination mechanisms such that we now have this longer term and larger program. So it's a fantastic example of how, initial financing can help to lead to something longer, and just greater in terms of financial investment.
And could you share more about the specifics of the project in Jordan, or I don't know, also maybe you want to...
I'm happy to start. Please later on.
Fill in where
so the program that we now have is called LEAD, which stands for Livelihoods, Environmental Actions for Development. The initial assessment looked at identifying different hotspots of where there are leakages, where there are water use efficiency challenges, where there are specific areas of opportunity for technology to help address some of the water supply and water delivery challenges, but also help to improve access to different livelihoods that rely upon water, while also diversifying the kinds of livelihood opportunities such that there is less reliance upon scarce water supplies. So a bit more, I'm happy to keep elaborating.
For sure.
I'll just add what made this project really attractive to us is, in addition to the water supply and critical wash access for the community, it really took an eye towards climate resiliency, both on how we can better use the resources, things like non-revenue water, other things that drive both more sustainable operations, but including reduced greenhouse gas emissions of the overall system, as well as climate resiliency to a pretty difficult climate for water infrastructure.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you already mentioned it's, one of the most water scarce countries in the world. I can imagine that in the entire sort of implementation process, development process of that project, you also stumble upon challenges, things you need to overcome, lessons you learn throughout. Could you maybe share more about that? I'm actually quite curious. What were some things that you encountered, some hurdles along the way, and were you able to get some lessons out of it? Was it something that was hard to sort of overcome?
I mean, I think establishing proof of concept is always a challenge in and of itself, and to some degree,
Yeah.
this partnership has come out of trying to address what is typically a really insurmountable challenge in doing long-term programming.
Yeah.
That especially in a context where the needs and challenges might be divergent, depending upon the specific community or context you're working in.
Right.
So I don't mean to kind of not fully answer, but I think this, in some ways, this project has come out of a way to address what is typically a challenge.
Yeah.
And of course, there are always challenges in making sure that you are, addressing what is a really complex system. The integration of technology and practice and livelihoods is deeply interconnected. So there's always going to be challenges there, and making sure
Yeah.
that you have the exact right
But
context.
did you stumble upon any challenges that sort of provided you with an insight after, or a sort of aha moment, or a lesson learned through it?
I think something that we discovered through the process of developing the proof of concept is the deep importance of the order of which, and the kind of
Okay.
combination of approaches. So the ways in which you sequence and layer and integrate different interventions, such as the ones that
Yeah.
I'm not talking about as an output or a byproduct of this initial investment. I think that is a response to a challenge we discovered in the proof of concept phase, that it's not just putting one implementation process or one innovation next to each other. It's really about the kind of systems level understanding of how those pieces fit into each other. And I think that that's a challenge we sought to address through the initial implementation phase.
Yeah. So those are they also seem like the sort of insights that you can even apply in different contexts. And
Yeah,
okay, so the importance
absolutely.
of order then.
Or the importance of how you sequence and layer different
Okay.
interventions together.
Yeah.
Context is deeply important for ensuring the
Fair,
uptake and efficacy of different, whether it be financial models or
Yeah.
governance systems or technological innovations. And
Yeah.
as I said, innovation's not a one-size-all-fit
No, true, fair.
approach.
And when it comes to the partnership itself, working together, what were some lessons learned or some insights? That you'd
Well,
like to
I think to build on this, as I said, it's a 15-year partnership
Yeah.
with our philanthropic arm, Watermark. And so there's a long history of trust and a really close relationship with the Mercy Corps team that I think when this project was brought forward, which is an unproven project, it was new, and it really, resounded with us as the Xylem Watermark group to say, yeah, we know Mercy Corps is the right institution to invest in because we know they're going to carry it through and it's going to have long-term impact. So that is something, we have weekly calls with our Mercy Corps
Oh, nice.
counterparts. We have a very close relationship.
Yeah.
And so that really helped to build, both for this Jordan project, but all of our interventions that we work with Mercy Corps on are coming from a place of understanding each other's mission and priorities.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's sort of having that trust and also relying on the fact that you think somebody can carry through with it. I hear you mention that as well. Is that also what you would advise other sort of, let's say there are other people from the private sector or tuning in that want to work together more with NGOs? Is that part of the advice that you would give them if they want to look into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of our Watermark program, we have 6 core partners, of which Mercy Corps is one of our longest standing. And they've built that relationship over a long period of time, as I said, many interventions. And it's easy in corporate philanthropy to chase kind of what is the most attractive project in the moment or most attractive nonprofit in the moment.
Yeah.
And I would recommend, really to get the most bang for your philanthropic buck is to find those partners that you can have a relationship with, a long-term relationship that are willing to invest, as Mercy Corps has, in understanding our corporate commitments and what our priorities are, and likewise us for them, so we can really find that long-term middle ground.
Right. And when you say find those that you can have a long-term relationship with, I mean, I also hear you mention like people that, put effort and value into understanding, Xylem, understanding Mercy Clubs, each other. Is that the core of it, or is there more to it? Because that's can also be a difficult thing. I mean, even in private life, establishing who you can have a good long-term relationship with. How would you go about it from like a private sector to NGO sort of perspective?
It doesn't happen overnight.
No, certainly not, certainly not.
I would love to hear Meredith's perspective as well, but from us, I mean, it really is a lot of conversation, a lot of getting to know each other. We have a relationship with our core contact at Mercy Corps that we'll call each other out or say, hey, we like this target, but have you thought about incorporating this language?
Right.
And that kind of, when you reach that level of trust that you can say, hey, why don't we think about it this way? Let's, have you considered a different perspective? That really helps us be more thoughtful in our interventions in philanthropy. And I think Mercy Corps, we can help and say, what are the projects that are most attractive for corporate funding so that they can not only attract our philanthropy, but other corporate and private sector engagement as well.
Right. I love that. Also a certain level of openness that you can trust that you're able to have with a different party. Meredith, do you have anything that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I guess I'll just add on that, of course, that trust is built off of results, and that's come through the process of time, and that's in both ends.
Yeah.
And that with trust also comes a partnership should make both organizations better. And so to your point about, calling out or calling in different partners, it's about making sure that you're both in the same pursuit of, improving water security conditions and access, and knowing that the specific role each actor has to play in that. The partnership should function based off of that commitment of trust and the desire for each actor to be kind of stepping up in the ways that they're able.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, this is a super nice example, and you also see the bigger impact of a partnership like this succeeding 15 years. What would you say that it unlocks for the communities on the ground that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, something that Mercy Corps prides itself on is the longevity of which it has worked with and alongside communities. And so having reliable funding and a reliable, flexible funding to be able to maintain continuity of working in communities as long as it is, relevant. And appropriate, of course, that comes with the additional kind of positive outcomes for the community, and ensuring that the technologies and interventions that we are helping to support are ultimately durable and have longevity. That undoubtedly has positive long-term implications and impacts for the communities.
Yeah, that also cannot be underestimated, because when we're talking about, communities on the ground dealing with water anxiety, with water, security issues,
Definitely.
that reliability is such a crucial factor in not just physical well-being, but also the psychological sort of mental wellness there. Okay. Hey, what I always love about the World Water Week is that in a way it's sort of the embodiment of a part of the global water community coming together. I mean, everybody's going to go back to their respective work after this week is over. But what do you hope sort of people take away from this conversation that we're having here? What do you also hope that the future brings when it comes to corporate philanthropy in that way?
Yeah, I guess the main thing I'll state is that I cannot underscore how valuable it is to have a partner such as Xylem, who is willing to give us flexible funding, built off of the kind of trust and shared common values that we have, to be able to pilot, and understand the context for the innovations that we're helping to introduce alongside communities. And on the flip side, as I said, that needs to come off of as well being a trusted partner. So you need to be deserving of the trust that anyone who is giving money to an organization does. But that trust is a two-way street and built off of results and longevity. So cannot underscore enough how valuable that kind of financing is.
Yeah. Austin?
Yeah, I very similarly, I mean, there's a lot of options available for corporations and private sector to give money to. And so look for those partners that, have delivered results. And that's, what has been standing for our 15-year partnership with Mercy Corps. look for those results, and then also for those that are going to be there for the long run, especially when we're talking about wash interventions. It's very easy to find opportunities that are kind of quick fix investments, but finding those partners that we know are going to be in the community and embedded and really find the sustained long-term impact is super critical to us. And then the third, I think, is, be clear about your goals as a private sector. What are our corporate goals? What are we looking for? Clearly communicate those to partners, because then together you can find those creative solutions of financing projects you may not have considered on the face of the project, but once you start to understand the long-term impact, really see the alignment.
Yeah. I love that. I was riding along a little bit throughout this talk show, but it's about people that can carry through having trust with each other, trusting each other enough to be vulnerable and open and honest about things. It doesn't happen overnight, but when it does, I think we're looking at an example of the amazing impact that you can have. Thank you both so much for being here and for sharing this.
Likewise.
Thank you to our online audience. Thank you to our physical audience for being here. I hope you were able to take some lessons from it. And we'll be back to you shortly with some more talk shows. Thanks. So for the people here in the room, the